a nice weekend, or hopefully you're in class and you're learning how to effectively do a new lead. And so, what I'm going to talk to you about today is how authors and writers tend to write several different versions of their leads in order to make the best decision for their story. And so, that's our teaching point today, is that we have to write several different versions of our leads and our openings in order for us as authors to make the best author's choice. And that goes into author's craft and eventually goes into organization, and it just kind of leads the whole rest of the story for us to become stronger writers. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the lesson for strong openings. So like I said, we are focusing on openings. Sometimes you'll hear teachers call it lead, introduction. We know we call it exposition, and that's just one way that we can make sure we're all on the same page. It's obviously the same concept, but we have a lot of different words to explain the same thing. Basically, you're just beginning your story. And how do great writers construct strong openings to their novels and narratives? Well, they're constantly getting feedback during the revision process, and that's what you'll be doing as well. So your rough draft, you started off with a certain opening, and we're going to look at different mentor texts to see if we can improve that specific opening and make it better. Some quick strategies that authors tend to use. Lots of people use like pictures. So I don't really mean like drawing a picture. What I mean more is like conducting an unusual image. So describing it. We've talked about show not tell before. I want you to picture something for me. So when you tell your readers, imagine a room that's dark and cold and scary. Okay, you've used all of these adjectives now, and your readers are trapped in the story with you. And you did that using your words. Or you can hook people in using just dialogue. I think I used that during one of my stories when I was talking about a conversation I was having with my mom. You know, I've talked before how my mom and I, we have this weird relationship where we tend to not talk to each other in a normal volume voice, but everything seems to be loud. And so I can show that through dialogue. Some authors decide to choose action, so just throwing you right into the story. There are several authors that do that. Gary Paulson in Hatchet does that. Remember, he's right into the plane. He's explaining how he's going through all these emotional situations, and yet we're thrown right into the action. Some people have asked questions before, so I know that I asked a question at the beginning of the story where I talked about my grandmother, and I'll just reread that really fast. So, have you ever felt helpless, hopeless, and faithful all at the same time? And so that's talking directly to the reader, and a lot of times that gets readers hooked in right away. And last but not least, you can go ahead and give a definition, and I believe I did that one for my Golden Apple story. I defined what senioritis meant. And if you want to look at those stories again, you're more than welcome to. But those are some quick authentic mentor pieces that you can get from me. Otherwise, we can look at other examples from real authors, or published authors, I should say. You can, for interesting fact, it doesn't just always have to be a definition. It could be a statistic. It could just be something that maybe not many people know. So just a heads up on that. And so those are the quick notes if you don't want to write a lot of notes. But if you want to make some observations regarding the strong leads, I'm going to go ahead and show you my notes that are in my writing notebook. So let's go ahead and switch. Oh, there's my face. Hello, class. Okay. So here is my notes for this section. Okay. So again, the teaching point is that successful writers and authors conduct many different leads as a way to rehearse their stories. And so some of the techniques that we see are that writers might include some small details of that moment that ring true for the narrator. They will include inner thinking. We've talked about that a lot, and some of you are very good at that, like responding with things that you've talked about. We've also talked about how writers will include precise actions. So remembering that feelings, action, speech, and thought, that all goes into that introduction, that opening. That could be your way to intrigue the reader. And we can also talk about how writers might include exact words and, again, dialogue, right? So by doing all of that, we can get the readers to be interested in your story from the get-go and get them to connect with the main conflict. And most importantly, we want them to connect and we want you to introduce your character, because that's the whole reason we read stories. We read them to learn more about the characters. These characters have stories. You have stories, and you need to tell them. And so let's go ahead and just read a couple of different leads and see what happens. And what I'd like you to do actually is after you watch this video, I want you to go into Edmodo and post your favorite opening. And what we're going to do today is we are going to actually practice rewriting our own leads. We're going to have 3 or 4 different leads for our personal narrative, and we're going to pick the strongest one. So here we go. Look, notice how it starts in a quote, so we know that there must be some dialogue, and I know it's kind of hard to see. So, "Our land is alive, Esperanza," said Papa, taking her small hand as they walked through the gentle slopes of the vineyard. Leafy green vines draped the arbors, and the grapes were ready to drop. Esperanza was 6 years old and loved to walk with her papa through the winding rows, gazing up at him and watching his eyes dance with love for the land. Okay, so that's another one. We have some figurative language right here, watching his eyes dance with love for the land. That's personification. This is from Esperanza Rising. If you would like to read more from that, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to go to the next lead. This is from Watson's Go to Birmingham. And some of you have already done a really nice job of reading this story. You might have done it in elementary school, but it's still a very good lead. Let's go ahead and just read this first paragraph. It was one of those super duper cold Saturdays, one of those days that when you breathed out, your breath kind of hung frozen in the air like a hunk of smoke, and you could walk along and look exactly like a train blowing out big, fat, white puffs of smoke. So this one is painting us an image, okay? So we can see the smoke, we can connect directly to the character who's talking, or the narrator who's talking. So Christopher Paul Curtis does a very nice job of getting us right into that story. And then one of our class favorites is Freak the Mighty. So let's just really quick talk about this one, The Unvanquished Truth. I never had a brain until Freak came along and let me borrow his for a while. And the truth, the whole truth, the unvanquished truth, is how Freak would say it, and for a long time it was him who did the talking. Except I had a way of saying things with my fists and my feet even before we became Freak the Mighty, slaying dragons and fools and walking high above the world. So here we see a lot of author's craft. We see some fragments, we see some repetition, we even see some figurative language when it comes to comparisons. So you need to decide what kind of a style do you want to have in your own lead. Do you want to mock that of Rodman Philbrick or Christopher Paul Curtis, or even Pam Munoz Ryan, okay? You have to decide what style you want in order to get the readers interested. That is the most important task for you. That is the most important task, okay? So when you practice, before you practice, I want you to practice writing 4. Challenge yourself to do 4. If you do 3, that's okay. I want you to practice at least 3 or 4 different types of leads. Try a dialogue, try an action, try whatever it is that makes your narrative kind of connect with a reader. Okay? Meet with your correspondent. Decide how are you going to lead it into a different way. You might choose a different lead, and that might change the entire rest of the story because you want to mock that same style for the rest of the story. Okay? I know many of you are still in the notebook stage. That's okay. You can continue on in the notebooks, and once you're done with that story, transfer over to Google Docs. Don't forget to pick your favorite lead of this video. Was it Esperanza Rising, Watson's Go to Birmingham, or Freak the Mighty? And that's all I have for you today. Have a great day and enjoy your lead writing.